Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Dr. Crafford mentioned, I'm Jager, and my research title is The Leadership Effectiveness of Quantity Surveyors in South Africa. On the agenda, I will be introducing you to leadership and provide you with a brief literature review. I'll explain the research methodology followed in this study. I'll also provide you with the findings, and thereafter we will conclude and provide some recommendations. And finally, I will open the floor for any questions you might have. It has been said in history that leadership is one of the most observed and least understood phenomena on earth. For centuries, man has committed himself to the understanding of this intriguing concept. And it has been said that there's almost as many definitions thereof as there are researchers who attempted to define it. To emphasize the importance of leadership, Napoleon was once quoted as saying that he would rather have an army of rabbits led by a lion than an army of lions led by a rabbit. The importance of leadership in the construction industry and in the quantity surveying profession in particular is irrefutable. Projects are continuing to become more and more complex, and leaders are required to play a larger role. In addition to that, strong and effective leadership has the ability to eradicate several factors that blemish the construction industry. Leadership forms the rudder and backbone of any organization, industry, and indeed a nation, and can never be superfluous. Whenever a shortage of leadership occurs, a bottleneck for growth and development ensues. When a leader performs his duties, he applies a leadership style to his followers, and this can either result in successful or unsuccessful results. Short-sighted leaders are concerned only with these two outcomes. However, leaders with vision understand that successful results can also be achieved effectively or ineffectively. And the link between effective results and the leader is the leadership style that the leader applies. Now, leadership researchers seldom agree on anything. However, they do agree on one thing, that there's no correct leadership, or rather, there's no incorrect leadership style, only an inappropriate leadership style. Leaders are required to have the ability to determine the most appropriate leadership style and apply it. The outlook of a leader should be almost that of a dancer. A dancer applies his dancing style to the music, and only when a leader has the same approach to leadership will he be regarded as being effective. Various studies have been conducted regarding leadership in other professions. However, limited knowledge exists about the leadership of quantity surveyors. This study thus attempted to fill that knowledge vacuum and provide insight into the leadership abilities of quantity surveyors. The study also attempted to identify any potential shortcomings that might require attention. The objectives of the study was first to determine the leadership orientation of quantity surveyors. Secondly, to determine the leadership style quantity surveyors most often make use of. And then finally, the leadership effectiveness of quantity surveyors. That is the ability to match a leadership style to a situation. To solve these three objectives, two leadership models were implemented, namely the Fiedler contingency model and the Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership model. The Fiedler contingency model was implemented to determine the orientation of leaders. Now, it argues that there's two extremes that a leader can be. A leader can either be task-orientated or relationship-orientated. Task-orientated leaders are concerned with production. They get their primary satisfaction through the accomplishment of duties and tasks and tend to prefer to work according to strict guidelines. Whereas relationship-orientated leaders, on the other hand, are concerned with people. They get their primary satisfaction through the admiration and support from their co-workers and tend to be better at preventing conflict. Now, between these two extremes, Fiedler also identified a third category, which is a borderline case. Those type of leaders are not so easy to identify since they have characteristics of both. It is even more important to note that none of these three categories can be regarded as better as the other one. it should be viewed as a personality trait of a leader. The Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership model was implemented to first determine the primary style of quantity surveyors, that is the leadership style they most often apply, and then to determine their leadership effectiveness. Now this model identifies 4 types of leadership styles, namely, namely a directing type of leadership style, where the leader tells the follower what to do, provides him strict guidelines, and there's only a one-way communication between the leader and the follower. These leaders also provide guidelines, but allow for two-way communication between the leader and the follower. The third leadership style is a supporting type of leadership style. These leaders participate with their followers in a team environment, and there's a large degree of two-way communication. The final type of leadership style is a delegating type of leadership style. These leaders have a hands-off approach to leadership. They give full reins to their followers and merely observe them. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the most appropriate leadership style is determined by the situation. And the situation in this case is called the maturity of a follower. Now, the maturity of a follower does not refer to the follower's age. Instead, it refers to the willingness, the responsibility, and the capabilities of an individual. Now, quantity surveyors interact with a large variety of individuals who will most definitely range in maturity. For example, if a person is regarded as being unwilling, irresponsible, and lacking capabilities, they will be regarded as having a low maturity, and thus a directing type of leadership style would be most appropriate. Whereas if the opposite is true, and a person is responsible, willing, and has capabilities, a delegating type of leadership style would be most appropriate. Now, the two models that are discussed are interlinked, and that is that a leader who is regarded as being relationship orientated tends to make use of a supporting or coaching type of leadership style, whereas a leader who is regarded as being task orientated mostly makes use of a coaching or directing type of leadership style. So this study basically zoomed in on the leadership of quantity surveyors. Firstly, to determine where they fall on the X and Y axis of that illustration, in which particular quadrant do they fall in terms of the type of leadership style they most often apply, and then finally, their ability to adapt their leadership style and apply it to the maturity of a follower. To solve this, a quantitative study was conducted. Questionnaires were distributed to professional registered quantity surveyors across South Africa. They were sent a questionnaire with questions, or rather, the questionnaire was based on the questions developed by these leadership models. And because it was a rather lengthy questionnaire, any respondents suspected of programming were removed. Programming is a case where you select all your answers as A. They were removed to prevent skewing of the results. A total of 1,970 professional quantity surveyors are registered at the ASAQS. A total of 391 were sampled to whom the questionnaires were sent, of which a total of 63 responded. The respondents' position in the organization ranged from being a quantity surveyor to a managing director. And the most important thing to note here is that more than 50% of the respondents held either the position of an associate, a director, or a managing director, and are clearly leaders in their respective organizations. With regards to the leadership orientation of quantity surveyors, 32% of the respondents are regarded as being task-orientated. They're more concerned with production. 7% are borderline categories or classes where they have characteristics of both the extremes. And a massive 61% of the respondents are regarded as being relationship-orientated, where they're more concerned with people and what people think. With regards to the leadership style that quantity surveyors most make use of, 11% of the respondents made use of a directing type of leadership style, where they tell the follower what to do. A mammoth 73% make use of a coaching type of leadership style, where they also tell the follower what to do, but allow for two-way communication between the follower and the leader. 16% make use of a supporting type of leadership style, where they participate with their followers as a team, and none of the respondents make use of a delegating type of leadership style as their most often applied leadership style. Before I continue, a similar study was conducted in Hong Kong, and it also focused on quantity surveyors. And although there's a large difference between Hong Kong and South Africa in terms of cultural differences, economic and social structure, it also revealed the same results, that quantity surveyors are in Hong Kong also concerned with, most often apply a coaching type of leadership style and are relationship orientated. Back in South Africa, this particular model also allows to determine the degree of effectiveness, and it provides a scoring method. Now, a score ranging from 0 to 23 illustrate a need for self-development. These leaders are ineffective leaders. They do not hold the ability to match their leadership style to the maturity of a follower. A score ranging from 24 to 29 illustrate a moderate degree of effectiveness. These leaders are a bit average and still rough around the edges. A score ranging from 30 to 36 illustrate a high degree of effectiveness. These leaders are the elite. They hold the ability to match the most appropriate leadership style to the maturity of a follower. Almost 60% of the respondents fell into the lowest category. Just over 40% fell into the average category. And those of you can see where this is heading, none of the respondents fell into the highest category. And this is very, very, very concerning, because this illustrates that quantity surveyors, to a very large extent, are ineffective leaders. And leaders tend to focus, or to scrutinize rather, their followers whenever there's a decrease in production or performance, whereas the leader himself or herself might be the source of that. To conclude, the study revealed that quantity surveyors are relationship orientated. They're more concerned with what people think than tasks. It also revealed that quantity surveyors most often apply a coaching type of leadership style, where they provide guidelines but also allow for two-way communication between the leader and the follower. Most importantly, it revealed that quantity surveyors have difficulty in identifying the maturity of a follower and apply the most appropriate leadership style. Leaders are measured only by one criterion, and that is their ability to extract the optimal potential from a follower. An ineffective leader will not extract the optimal potential from a follower. And a soft skill such as effective leadership can mean a difference between success and failure. Peter Drucker, who is widely regarded as the father of modern management, said that leaders are not born, they are grown. This study has revealed potential shortcomings in the leadership abilities of quantity surveyors. However, all is not lost. It is from this point that leaders can set themselves goals and strategies to become the perception of their ideal leader. The study also recommends that quantity surveying practices should understand their current leaders when searching for future leaders, since leaders with different leadership styles tend to complement each other. The development of leadership should not be regarded as an expense. Instead, it must be viewed as an investment that will not only develop current leaders, but generate future leaders. Thank you very much for your time. I'll also answer any questions you might have now.
I was just wondering why 0% at the delegating leadership style. That's just a question.
Okay, that,
I don't have to answer it. I was just wondering about why nobody.
Okay, that is not that's not most necessarily they don't make use of it, but that was the type of styles they most often apply. So I'm not sure what the reason is. Obviously, it's quantity surveyors have difficulty in identifying the maturity of high mature individuals, I believe it's difficult in the quantity surveying profession to simply delegate. I mean, if the leader is ultimately responsible for any result, and you're working with money, and you're going to be responsible for it. So it's difficult to just give full responsibilities to someone else. I think that might. Does that answer your question, Prof?
And then just the last one is when you determine the leadership effectiveness.
Yes.
Was that rated by the leaders or by the followers?
That was. I can provide you an example. It might explain it better.
Okay.
Can I-
Thank you.
The questionnaire was focused only on leaders, and
So they rated themselves?
yeah, they rated themselves, but not. Wait, just read the question first. This is a typical question they might ask. Members of the group are unable to solve a problem. You've normally left them alone. Group performance and interpersonal relationships or relations have been good. What would you do? Would you work with the group and together engage in the problem? Let the group work it out themselves? Act quickly and firmly to correct and redirect? Or encourage the group to work on the problem and be supportive of their efforts? Now, your answer that you select illustrates your leadership style. So if you, for example, if you selected D, that would be the most appropriate leadership style. Because this group of individuals are willing, but they're unable, but they have been in the past. So you just need to help them on along. If I can go back to this one. You see, you can't use a delegating style because they are unable to do it. So you have to go one step back, and that's a supporting type of leadership style. Does that answer your question, Prof?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Roy?
Thank you. In your survey, did you actually experience a gap between leadership styles looking at the size of the firms?
I did not particularly ask the respondents what their size of the firm is, but I did ask them what their position is in the organization. I can also explain that to you. It revealed that individuals who are higher up in the hierarchical level of an organization are better leaders. But unfortunately, the average of each level still falls into the lowest category. So there is a difference depending on their position in the organization. But I could not, the size of the organization, did not take that in consideration.
Sharon?
That just makes me think about then if you've got a guy working on his own and he's a director.
That's true, but
And he's not actually leading.
well,
I would hope that he wouldn't have answered then and would have thought, well, this doesn't apply to me, but you wouldn't necessarily know.
I believe that any person in an organization has a leadership role.
Okay.
It might not be as significant, but he needs to fulfill a leadership role.
Okay.
That is in future studies, I think that should be included, the size of the organization.
Great.
Thank you for your
Well
question.
done. Well
Thanks.
done.
Welcome to the floor. Keith?
Deon, thanks for a good presentation there. The one aspect that you brought up that there's, we don't have any effective leaders in your top category in South Africa. You said a similar research was done in Hong Kong, I think you
Yes.
said. How did that compare? And were there any in that top category? And if so, why do you think that they were there and they aren't here?
Unfortunately, in that study, they only wanted to determine the leadership orientation and the style that is most often applied. They did not continue with the model to determine the effectiveness. And as I mentioned, there's very limited knowledge in this topic. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to, there wasn't enough information available to facilitate a like-for-like comparison. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations. Absolutely marvelous.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.